Lisa Martinez rubbed her tired eyes and took another sip of cold coffee. The night shift on Galileo base was always quiet, but tonight felt different. She had been monitoring deep space communications for 3 years now, and she knew when something was wrong. The base floated in the dark space around Neptune, far from Earth's busy signals. Lisa's job was simple: listen for messages from other worlds and report anything important. Most nights she heard nothing but static and the usual chatter between trading ships. But tonight was different. The first signal came at 0347 hours. Lisa almost missed it because it was so weak. She turned up the volume and listened carefully. The voice was speaking in Galactic Common, the language most alien species used to talk to each other. But this voice was scared. Please, ... anyone. Listening, ... we need help, the voice said. And the words were broken and hard to understand. They came from the dark. Burning our cities, killing our people. Lisa sat up straight. This was not a normal message. She started recording and called. Her supervisor, Commander Sullivan, you need to hear this, she said into her com. Jake Sullivan arrived at the communications center within minutes. He was a tall man with gray hair and kind eyes, but right now he looked worried. Lisa played the message again. The alien voice continued, This is Zephyr colony on Kepler 4 for it to be. The Korthok Empire has invaded our world. We have no weapons. We have no soldiers. Children are hiding in the caves while their ships burn our homes. Please, if anyone can hear this, we need help. We are dying. The message repeated several times, then went silent. Sullivan stared at the speaker. How long ago did this signal start? It's about 20 minutes ago, sir. But given the distance to Kepler 4 for to be, this message is probably 2 days old. Sullivan nodded grimly. He knew about the Korthok Empire. They were a military species that conquered other worlds and used the people as slaves. The Galactic Council had been trying to stop them for years, but the Korthok were too strong and too fast. Get Dr. Foster up here, Sullivan ordered, and contact Earth Command. They need to know about this. Dr. Amanda Foster arrived 15 minutes later, still wearing her sleep clothes. She was Earth's top expert on alien species and had been studying the Zephyrians for years. When she heard the message, her face went pale. The Zephyrians are completely peaceful, she explained to Sullivan. They have never built weapons or fought wars. Their whole culture is based on art, music, and taking care of their families. They would not even hurt an insect. What about their technology? Sullivan asked. Basic at best. They can build ships for travel and communication, but nothing that could fight the Korthok. They're like children compared to a military empire. Lisa played more of the recording. In the background, it could hear other sounds, explosions, screaming, and something else that made Amanda cover her mouth in horror. Those are children crying, Amanda whispered. Zephyrian children sound just like human children when they are scared. The room went quiet. Everyone knew what that meant. Somewhere far away, families were being torn apart. Children were watching their parents die. An entire peaceful world was being destroyed, and no one was helping them. What about the Galactic Council? Lisa asked. Will they send help? Sullivan shook his head. The council moves too slowly. By the time they vote on what to do, argue about it for weeks, and finally send a peacekeeping force, the Zephyrians will all be dead or enslaved. Then who will help them? Amanda asked. Before Sullivan could answer, another message came through the speakers. This time, the voice was different, younger. My name is Zia Lara. I am 7 years old and you're counting. The bad people took my mother and father. I'm hiding with my little brother in the deep caves. The other adults told me to keep sending this message. They said maybe someone good will hear us and come help. Please, if you are out there, we are very scared. The bad people are looking for us. I do not want my little brother to die. The message broke off into static. Amanda was crying now. Sullivan's hands were shaking with anger. Lisa stared at the communication panel, wishing she could reach through space and help that little girl. Sir, Lisa said quietly, what do we do? Was quiet for a long moment. Then he walked to the main communication station and opened a direct channel to Earth. Galileo base to Earth Command. Priority Alpha. We have a situation. The response came quickly. Earth command here. Go ahead, Galileo. We have received a distress call from Zephyr colony. They are under attack by the Korthok Empire. The situation is critical. They have no defenses and are requesting immediate assistance. There was a pause. Then, understood, Galileo, stand by for further instructions. The channel closed. Sullivan, Amanda, and Lisa waited in silence. Around them, the space station hummed quietly as it orbited Neptune. Outside the windows, stars twinkled in the endless dark. Somewhere among those stars, children were crying for help. 20 minutes later, the communication system came alive with activity. Messages were flying back and forth between Earth's major cities, military bases, and space stations. Lisa had never seen so much traffic on the emergency channels then. President Helen Parker's voice came through on the main speaker. She was addressing the United Earth Assembly, but her words were being broadcast to every human in the solar system. Citizens of Earth, the president began, we have received a cry for help from across the stars. A peaceful people called the Zephyrians are being attacked by a military empire. They have no weapons. They have no soldiers. They have only their families and their hope that someone, somewhere, will answer their call. Lisa noticed that other crew members were gathering in the communication center. Word was spreading through the station. The Zephyrians remind us of ourselves, the president continued. They love their children. They create beautiful art and music. They work together to build better lives for their families. They are everything we value about intelligent life in the universe. Now they are dying while the galaxy watches and does nothing. The president's voice grew stronger. But we will not watch and do nothing. We will not let children cry in the dark while we turn away. We will not let evil triumph because good people chose to stay silent. As of this moment, Earth is mobilizing to assist the Zephyrian people. We will send ships, soldiers, and supplies. We will do whatever it takes to help these innocent people survive. Some will say we have no right to interfere. Some will say it is not our fight. Some will say we should mind our own business and let the galaxy handle its own problems. To them I say, when children cry for help, it becomes everyone's fight. When evil attacks the innocent, good people must respond. That is what makes us human. The transmission ended, but Lisa could hear activity throughout the base. People were talking, moving, preparing. Something big was happening. Sullivan looked at his small crew. Oh, people, it looks like we're going to war. Amanda wiped her eyes. Do you think we can really help them? The Korthok Empire is so big, so powerful. Sullivan smiled for the first time that night. Dr. Foster, you study alien species, but I do not think you fully understand humans yet. We may not be the biggest or the strongest species in the galaxy, but when someone hurts children and asks for our help, we become something else entirely. What do we become? Lisa asked. We become what every bully fears most, Sullivan answered. We become the monsters that protect the innocent. Outside, in the cold space around Neptune, Earth's response was already beginning. Ships were changing course. Soldiers were getting ready. And somewhere in the dark between the stars, a little girl named Zialara was still hiding in a cave, not knowing that the monsters of Earth had heard her cry for help, and they were coming. Earth changed overnight. Within hours of President Parker's speech, every military base on the planet was buzzing with activity. Ships that had been designed for peaceful exploration were being pulled into repair yards and fitted with weapons. Civilian vessels were being converted into hospital ships and troop transports. Admiral Roy Campbell stood in the command center at Luna Base, watching the organized chaos through the large windows. Ships of every size were moving through space, all heading toward the same goal. He had been given command of what the media was already calling Task Force Vengeance, and he knew this would be the biggest military operation in human history. Admiral, his aide said, approaching with a datapad. The fleet status report. Campbell looked at the numbers and whistled softly. In just 48 hours, Earth had gathered over 200 ships. Some were military vessels like destroyers and cruisers. Others were Converted civilian ships. The luxury cruise liner New York was now carrying 5,000 Marines. The mining ship Dakota had been fitted with enough weapons to level a city. What about the crews? Campbell asked. That's the interesting part, sir. We have more volunteers than ships. Retired Navy pilots are coming back to service. Civilian cargo pilots are demanding to be part of the mission. Even some of the Mars colony ships have volunteered to join us. Campbell nodded. He had been in the military for 30 years, but he had never seen anything like this. Usually when Earth went to war, people complained and protested. This time, everyone wanted to help. At Fort Jackson in South Carolina, General Linda Brooks was dealing with a different kind of problem. Her recruitment centers were overflowing with volunteers. Young men and women were lining up around the block, demanding to join the mission to save the Zephyrians. General Sergeant Major Williams reported, "We have a situation. The volunteers keep coming, but we don't have enough training facilities." "How many?" Brooks asked. "Over 50,000 in the last day, ma'am, and they're not all military. We have doctors, engineers, teachers, even some grandparents who want to help somehow." Brooks smiled grimly. "Set up temporary training camps? Use every available facility? We'll train them on the ships during the journey if we have to." "In the medical bay, Doctor?" Patricia Green was organizing medical supplies when a young Marine approached her. "Doctor, my name is Corporal Barry Johnson. I used to be a medic before I joined the Marines. I want to volunteer for the medical team." "Are you sure, Corporal? This won't be an easy mission. Korthok are known for being brutal to their prisoners." Johnson looked determined. "Ma'am, I heard that recording. Those kids crying. I have a little sister back home who's about the same age as that Zephyrian girl. If someone was hurting her, I'd want the whole universe to come help." Dr. Green studied the young man's face. She saw the same expression on everyone who had heard Zia Lara's message. Anger mixed with determination and something else. Love for children they had never met. At the civilian spaceport in New Angeles, Captain Steve Wagner was watching his cargo ship being transformed. Workers were installing medical equipment and extra life support systems. His ship, the Freedom's Call, was being converted into a mobile hospital. "Captain Wagner," a technician called out, "are you sure about this? Your ship isn't insured for combat operations." Steve laughed. "Son, my grandfather fought in World War III against Earth's fascists. My father helped liberate the Mars colonies from the corporate dictators. I'll be damned if I'm going to sit here while space fascists murder children." He looked at his ship with pride. "Besides, someone has to patch up our boys and girls when they get hurt saving those kids." Meanwhile, in a secure facility beneath, the Rocky Mountains intelligence officer Major Kevin Price was studying everything Earth knew about the Korthok Empire. The information was not encouraging. The Korthok controlled over 200 worlds. Their military was disciplined, well-equipped, and had never lost a major battle. They fought according to strict codes of warfare that had served them well for centuries. Major, his assistant Lieutenant Nancy Adams said, "I've finished analyzing. Their combat records, the Korthok, are predictable. They always follow the same patterns. Orbital bombardment first, then ground invasion, then occupation." Price nodded. "What about their weaknesses?" "That's the problem, sir. They don't seem to have any. They're too organized, too methodical. Every species they've conquered tried to fight them the same way, and every species lost." Price stared at the data for a long moment. Then he smiled. "Lieutenant, I think you found their weakness, sir. They're too predictable. They expect their enemies to fight like civilized galactic citizens. But we're not civilized galactic citizens. What are we, sir? We're humans, and humans don't fight fair." Across the solar system, similar conversations were happening. On Mars, Colonel Pete Harrison was briefing his Marine battalion about unconventional warfare tactics. On Europa Station, Navy pilot Commander Lisa Stone was practicing low-altitude flying maneuvers that made her co-pilot sick. But it was not just the military who were preparing. In workshops across Earth, civilian engineers were working day and night to create new equipment. They built portable shields for the Marines. They designed medical equipment that could work in alien atmospheres. They even created translation devices so human soldiers could communicate with scared Zephyrian children. The transformation was not just physical. Something had changed in humanity's spirit. People who had been going about their normal lives just days before were now united in a single purpose: save the Zephyrians. The Galactic community watched Earth's mobilization with growing concern. Ambassador Veltar of the Centauri Federation requested an emergency meeting with Earth's representatives. Ambassador Martinez, Veltar said to Rachel. Martinez, Lisa's sister, who served as Earth's galactic diplomat, your species' response concerns us. The Korthok Empire is not some minor threat. They have conquered civilizations that were far more advanced than humanity. Rachel looked at the tall, blue-skinned alien calmly. Ambassador Veltar, how many children does your species have? The question surprised him. I do not understand the relevance. Simple question. Do Centauri have children? Of course we do. But then you should understand why we're doing this. Veltar shook his head. The Zephyrian situation is tragic, but interfering will only make things worse. Korthok will see this as an act of war against their empire. Good, Rachel said simply. Good. You want war with the Korthok Empire? No, Ambassador. We want them to know that when they hurt children, they hurt all of us. And when they hurt all of us, we come for them. Veltar studied the human woman. You realize the Korthok have never been defeated? They command fleets that could destroy entire solar systems. Rachel smiled, but there was no warmth in it. Ambassador, you've studied human history, haven't you? Some of it, yes. Then you know we've never been very good at accepting the word impossible. When someone tells us something can't be done, we take it as a challenge. But this is different. This is the Korthok Empire, and we're humanity. I like our odds. Back on Luna Base, Admiral Campbell was receiving the final fleet reports. The numbers were staggering. In just 72 hours, Earth had assembled the largest fleet in human history. More than that, they had volunteers from every walk of life. Soldiers, doctors, engineers, pilots, mechanics, cooks, and thousands of others. Captain Tony Miller, an Army engineer, approached the Admiral with his final supply report. Sir, we have enough medical supplies for a 6-month campaign. 8 months, and enough ammunition to fight a war. What about the civilian volunteers? Campbell asked. They're remarkable, sir. We have retired doctors coming out of retirement, former teachers who want to help care for Zephyrian children. After we rescue them, even some artists who want to help rebuild their cities. Campbell nodded. This was more than a military operation. This was humanity showing the galaxy what they were capable of when someone threatened children. Admiral, his communications officer, called out, "We're receiving a message from the Korthok Empire. Put it on speakers." A harsh mechanical voice filled the command center. This is War Leader Thakmer of the Korthok Third Fleet. We have detected human ships moving toward Korthok territory. You will turn back immediately or face the consequences. Campbell walked to the communication station and opened a reply channel. War Leader Thakmer, this is Admiral Campbell of the Terran Task Force. We have received a distress call from innocent people you are attacking. We are coming to help them. The Zephyrians are now property of the Korthok Empire. Your interference will not be tolerated. Campbell's voice grew cold. War Leader, you made a mistake when you decided to hurt children. Now you're about to learn why that was a bad idea. You dare threaten the Korthok Empire? I'm not threatening you, War Leader. I'm promising you something. We're coming. When we arrive, you're going to wish you had never heard of the Zephyrians. The communication ended. Campbell looked around the command center at his officers. They all had the same expression. Determination mixed with barely controlled anger. All ships, Campbell announced over the fleet communication system. This is Admiral Campbell. We launch in 6 hours. Our mission is simple. Save the Zephyrians and show the Korthok what happens when they mess with children. Task Force Vengeance, prepare for war. Task Force Vengeance dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Kepler 442 system. What they saw made every human heart burn with anger. 3 Korthok battle fleets surrounded the peaceful blue-green world of Zephyr Colony. Smoke clouds rose. From the planet's surface, where cities had been burning for days, Admiral Campbell stood on the bridge of his flagship, the EFS Liberty, watching the tactical display. The Korthok had positioned their ships in a standard blockade formation. It was textbook galactic warfare, designed to prevent anyone from reaching the planet. Admiral, his tactical officer, reported, "We're detecting 47 Korthok warships. They outgun us 2-1. Campbell smiled grimly. "Good thing we didn't come here to play by their rules." Signaled the fleet. "Begin Operation Monsoon." War leader Thokmer watched the human fleet approach with confidence. His ships were bigger, more powerful, and crewed by warriors who had conquered dozens of worlds. These humans would learn the same lesson every other species had learned. The Korthok Empire was unstoppable. War leader, his sensor operator, reported, "The human ships are breaking formation. They are not following standard attack patterns." Thokmer frowned. In galactic warfare, fleets always approached in organized formations, exchanged long-range fire, then closed for the final battle. It was civilized. It was predictable. The human fleet scattered like a swarm of angry insects. Commander Lisa Stone dove her fighter squadron toward the planet's surface, flying so low that Korthok sensors lost track of them in the atmospheric interference. Behind her, 20 other human pilots followed, their ships loaded with supplies for the Zephorian survivors. "Phoenix Squadron, this is Stone. Remember, we're not just fighting ships today. We're fighting for kids hiding in caves." On the planet's surface, Colonel Pete Harrison's Marines were already hitting the beaches. But they were not landing where the Korthok expected. Instead of attacking the main Korthok bases, they were dropping directly into Zephyrian cities, right where the civilians were trapped. Harrison's boots hit the ground hard as his drop pod crashed through the roof of a burning building. Around him, his Marines were doing the same thing, landing in the middle of the urban battle zone. "First Battalion, sound off," Harrison called into his radio. Charlie Company in position came. The first reply, "We've got eyes on Korthok ground troops. They're herding civilians toward some kind of collection point." "Delta Company here," another voice reported. "Sir, you need to see this. The Korthok are separating the children from their parents." Harrison felt his blood run cold. All units, new priority. Protect those civilians at all costs. 3 blocks away, Sergeant Major Carlos Rivera was leading his squad through the rubble-filled streets when they heard it. Children crying. Zephyrian children, just like in the recording that had started this whole war. Sergeant Major Private Kelly Williams whispered, "Movement ahead. Looks like Korthok soldiers." Rivera peered around a broken wall and saw them. 6 Korthok warriors in their black armor surrounding a group of Zephyrian families. The aliens looked like tall lizards with 4 arms and cold yellow eyes. They were pointing their weapons at children who could not have been older than 5 years. "Williams, Jackson, circle around back. Peterson, you're with me. We go on my mark." Never knew what hit them. Rivera and his Marines attacked from 3 directions at once, moving fast and hitting hard. The alien soldiers were trained to fight other military units, not human Marines who fought like they were personally offended. Within 30 seconds, all 6 Korthok were down. Rivera knelt beside a young Zephyrian girl who was crying over her wounded mother. The little alien had large purple eyes and soft blue fur. She looked up at the big human soldier with fear. "Hey there, little one," Rivera said softly, removing his helmet so she could see his face. "We're here to help. What's your name?" "Zilara," the girl whispered. Rivera's heart stopped. This was the girl from the recording, the one who had asked for help. "Well, Zilara, my name is Carlos. My friends and I came a very long way to help you and your family. You're safe now." The little girl looked at him with wonder. "You came because of my message." "We sure did, sweetie. We brought a lot of friends." Meanwhile, in orbit, the space battle was unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. The Korthok fleet was trying to fight a traditional battle. The humans refused to cooperate. Captain Nicole Davis commanded the stealth ship Shadow Dancer. While the main battle raged, she and her special operations team were doing something that horrified the Korthok. They were boarding enemy ships. Davis and her team cut through the hull of the Korthok command cruiser and began moving through its corridors. But instead of trying to capture the ship, they were doing something much worse. They were making noise. Johnson. Start the music, Davis ordered. Corporal Barry Johnson plugged his portable speaker into the ship's communication system and pressed play. Suddenly, the entire Korthok ship was filled with the sounds of Earth's most terrifying noises. Chainsaws, air raid sirens, death metal music. And underneath it all, recordings of human warriors shouting battle cries. The Korthok crew began to panic. They had never experienced psychological warfare before. In their culture, battles were fought with honor and dignity. This was madness. What are they doing? Thekmer screamed at his communications officer. Unknown war leader. They seem to be trying to drive us insane. Davis and her team moved through the ship's corridors like ghosts, appearing just long enough to attack a patrol, then vanishing into the shadows. They painted human words on the walls. They left recordings of children laughing in empty rooms. They turned the Korthok's own ship into a haunted house. Back on the surface, more human forces were arriving every minute. But these were not just soldiers. Captain Steve Wagner's medical ship Freedom's Call was hovering over a Zephyrian city. Using its tractor beams to lift wounded civilians directly to safety, Dr. Patricia Green was setting up field hospitals in the ruins of Zephyrian schools. Her medical teams were working alongside human engineers who were already starting to rebuild damaged buildings. "Doctor," one of her nurses called out, "we have a problem. This Zephyrian child has been separated from her family. She won't stop." Crying, Dr. Green looked at the small alien girl who could not have been more than 3 years old. The child's soft blue fur was dirty from hiding in the ruins, and her large eyes were filled with tears. "Let me try something," Dr. Green said. She knelt beside the child and began humming a simple earth lullaby. The melody was soft and soothing. The Zephyrian girl stopped crying and listened. Then, to everyone's surprise, she began humming along. The tune was universal. The sound of someone caring was the same in any language. On the other side of the city, Captain Tony Miller was discovering something that made him furious. The Korthak had been using Zephyrian civilians as forced labor, making them build weapons and ships for the Empire. "Sir," his lieutenant reported, "we found their main labor camp. There are over 1,000 Zephyrians being held there. Men, women, and children." Miller's jaw tightened. "Get me a strike team. We're ending this now." The assault on the labor camp was swift and brutal. Lear's engineers had built special breaching charges that could blow through Korthok barriers without hurting the prisoners inside. Within minutes, they had freed hundreds of Zephyrian families, but it was what they found inside the camp that really showed them what kind of enemy they were fighting. The Korthok had been separating Zephyrian children from their parents, planning to raise them as slaves who would never know freedom. "Captain," one of his soldiers said, "look at this." Miller walked over to see a wall covered with children's drawings. Even in captivity, even while being forced to work, the young Zephyrians had been drawing pictures of their families and their hopes for home. One drawing showed a small Sechal, Zephyrian child holding hands with what looked like a human soldier. At the bottom, written in shaky letters, were the words, "Please come help us." Miller stared at the drawing for a long moment. Then he turned to his men. "Burn their weapons. Destroy their equipment. But save everything the children made. We're taking it all home with us." In orbit, the battle was turning. The Korthok ships were powerful, but they could not fight an enemy that refused to follow the rules. Human ships, attacked from every direction, using tactics that made no sense to traditional galactic warfare, Thekmer watched his fleet falling apart around him. These humans fought like wild animals, but wild animals with advanced technology and brilliant tactics. They were coordinated chaos, organized madness. War leader, his second-in-command, reported, "Our ground forces are requesting immediate evacuation. The humans are not just defeating them, they're terrifying them." "What do you mean?" "Our soldiers are reporting that the humans fight like they are protecting their own families, show no mercy to anyone who threatens civilians, but they are incredibly gentle with the Zephyrian children." Thekmer felt something he had never experienced before. Fear. Not fear of death, but fear of an enemy he could not understand. "Signal the fleet," he ordered. "Full retreat. We abandoned this system," but it was too late. Admiral Campbell had anticipated this moment. All ships, this is Campbell. Execute Operation Homecoming. No Korthok ship leaves this system. 3 months after the Battle of Zephyr Colony, the news had spread across the entire galaxy. The mighty Korthok Empire, conquerors of 200 worlds, had been defeated by a species most aliens had barely heard of. Humans had done the impossible. But the victory at Zephyr was just the beginning. Captain Tony Miller stood in what used to be the ruins of Zephyr City's main school. Now it was a beautiful building again, rebuilt by human engineers and decorated with artwork created by both human and Zephyrian children working together. The walls showed pictures of humans and Zephyrians holding hands, playing together, learning from each other. Captain Miller, a young Zephyrian engineer named Kethvon, approached him. The new hospital is finished. Dr. Green says it's better than anything we had before the war. Miller smiled. That's great news, Keth. How are the defense training classes? Going, Kethman's expression grew more serious. Good. Your people are teaching us that being peaceful doesn't mean being helpless. We never understood that before. It was true. For the first time in their history, the Zephyrians were learning to defend themselves. Not to attack others, but to protect their families and friends. Human instructors like Colonel Pete Harrison were teaching them basic military tactics. But more importantly, they were teaching them courage. We don't want you to become warriors like us, Harrison had explained to his Zephyrian students. We want you to become guardians. People who protect others because it's the right thing to do. The change was remarkable. Zephyrians, who had once run from danger, were now standing up to protect their children. They were still peaceful by nature, but they had learned that sometimes peace required strength. Meanwhile, across the galaxy, other species were taking notice of what humans had accomplished. In the Andromedan sector, the peaceful, gentle swimmers were being attacked by pirates. Their distress call went out through standard galactic channels and was ignored, just like the Zephorian call had been. Then they sent a message directly to Earth. Admiral Campbell was back on Luna Base when the communication arrived. The gentle swimmers were aquatic beings who lived on water worlds and had never hurt anyone in their long history. Now, they were being enslaved by the Scorpion Brotherhood, a group of pirates who sold people to the highest bidder. Sir, his communications. Officer reported, we're getting similar calls from 12 different systems. The Peaceful Garden Worlds, the Crystal Singers, the Dream Weavers, they're all asking for human help. Campbell studied the star charts. These were species scattered across thousands of light years, all being attacked by different enemies. Peaceful, all defenseless, all crying for help. Signal Earth Command, he ordered. We need to expand the fleet. The response from Earth was immediate and overwhelming. President Parker announced the creation of the Terran Protection Corps, permanent organization dedicated to helping peaceful species defend themselves. Volunteers flooded in from every human world and colony, but not everyone in the galaxy was happy about humanity's new role. In the elegant council chambers of the Ethereal Collective, the galaxy's most advanced philosophical species was holding an emergency meeting. The Ethereals were beings of pure energy who considered themselves the moral guides of the galaxy. They did not approve of humanity's methods. The humans are barbaric, declared High Ethereal Lumthera. They use violence to solve problems that should be handled through negotiation and understanding. They saved innocent lives, countered Junior Ethereal Velmora, one of the few who supported humanity. The Korthok would never have negotiated. Is beside the point. Violence is never the answer to galactic problems. The humans are setting a dangerous precedent. Meanwhile, at the rebuilt Zephyrian Communication Center, Dr. Amanda Foster was working with Zephyrian scientists to establish a new early warning system.
Ow.
If any peaceful species came under attack, the message would reach human forces within hours instead of days. Dr. Foster Zialara said, walking into the laboratory. The young Zephyrian was now 8 years old and had become something of a celebrity across the galaxy. She was the voice that had started it all, the child whose cry for help had awakened Earth's protective instincts. Hello, Zialara. How are your studies going? Very well. Sergeant Major Rivera is teaching me Earth history. Told me about something called the Underground Railroad. People who helped other people escape from slavery even when it was dangerous. Amanda. Smiled, that's right. It was one of humanity's prouder moments. Is that what we're doing now? Building a galactic underground railroad for species who need help? Amanda was struck by the wisdom in the child's question. I think you might be right, Zialara. That's exactly what we're doing. Across the galaxy, that underground railroad was already working. Human fast response ships were stationed at key locations, ready to jump to any system that called for help. The ships weren't just military vessels. They carried teachers, doctors, engineers, and anyone else who could help. Rebuild worlds torn apart by violence. Captain Steve Wagner was now commanding a small fleet of hospital ships. His latest mission had taken him to the Crystal Singer homeworld, where his medical teams were treating aliens who had been wounded by energy weapon attacks. Captain Dr. Patricia Green called to him as she emerged from the medical bay. I'll need to show you something. She led him to a room where she was treating a young Crystal Singer. The alien looked like living glass and made beautiful musical sounds when it moved, but this one was silent. The pirates used sonic weapons, Dr. Green explained. They damaged her vocal cords. She may never sing again.
Wagner felt the familiar
anger rising in his chest. It was the same feeling every human got when they saw someone hurting children or destroying something beautiful. What do you need? He asked. A new kind of treatment, something we've never tried before. It's experimental, but it might restore her voice. Do it. 3 days later, the Crystal Singer child was singing again. Her voice was different than before, but still beautiful. When she sang, other Crystal Singers gathered around to listen, and Wagner saw tears of joy in their strange, glowing eyes. But humanity's growing reputation was also creating new problems. The Korthak Empire, humiliated by their defeat, was spreading propaganda across the galaxy. They claimed humans were dangerous monsters who would conquer peaceful species. Just like any other empire, some neutral species began to believe these lies. The Centauri Federation started limiting human ships in their space. The trade union imposed economic sanctions on human colonies. Ambassador Rachel Martinez found herself defending humanity at every galactic gathering. The accusations were always the same. Humans were too violent, too emotional, too unpredictable. Ambassador Martinez, the Centauri representative, said during one heated debate, "Oh, yeah. How can you expect us to trust a species that solves problems with warfare? How can you expect us to trust species that watch children being murdered and do nothing?" Rachel replied. The argument that really changed minds came from an unexpected source. Zialara, now old enough to travel, had asked to speak at the Galactic Council. She was the first Zephyrian to ever address the assembly. "Honored delegates," she began, her translated voice carrying across the great chamber. "I am the child who sent the message that brought the humans to our world. I want to tell you what I learned." The chamber fell silent. Everyone knew her story. Before the humans came, my people believed that being good meant never fighting. We thought violence was always wrong. We were proud of our peaceful nature. She paused, gathering her courage. But being peaceful didn't save my parents when the Korthok took them. Being peaceful didn't stop the bad people from hurting children. Being peaceful just meant we were easy victims. The humans taught us something important. Being good doesn't mean being helpless. Protecting innocent people isn't violence. It's love. You say the humans are dangerous, and you're right. They are very dangerous to anyone who hurts children. They're terrifying to anyone who attacks peaceful people. But they are the gentlest beings in the galaxy when they hold a scared child. I have seen human soldiers cry when they found wounded families. I have watched them risk their lives to save people they had never met. I have seen them build schools and hospitals instead of monuments to themselves. You call them monsters. But they are the monsters that protect us from real monsters. The chamber was completely quiet. Then, slowly, delegates from peaceful species began to applaud. The sound grew until the entire assembly was cheering. Later that day, 12 new species formally requested human protection. The Underground Railroad was expanding, back on Earth. Major Kevin Price was analyzing intelligence reports when he made a disturbing discovery. The Korthok Empire was regrouping. They had formed an alliance with other aggressive species, including the Scorpion Brotherhood and something called the Shadow Collective. General Brooks, He reported to his superior, "We have a problem. The enemy isn't giving up. They're organizing a counterattack." "How big?" Brooks asked. "Massive. They're calling it the final war against human interference. They plan to attack every peaceful species. Under our protection, at the same time." Brooks studied the intelligence data. The enemy force would be 10 times larger than anything humanity had ever faced. Sir Price continued, "There's something else." 6 months after Zealara's speech to the Galactic Council, the greatest battle in galactic history was about to begin. The final war, as the news media called it, would decide whether peaceful species could live free or if the galaxy would belong to the strong who preyed on the weak. Admiral Campbell stood on the bridge of his new flagship, the EFS Guardian, watching the largest fleet ever assembled by Earth, but this time humanity was not alone. Beside human ships flew vessels from 47 different peaceful species. The Underground Railroad had become a galactic alliance. "Admiral," his tactical officer reported, "enemy fleet detected at the edge of the system." "Sir, the numbers are concerning." Campbell looked at the display. Over 2,000 enemy ships were approaching, led by the combined forces of the Korthok Empire, the Scorpion Brotherhood, and 12 other aggressive species. They called themselves the Domination Alliance, and they had come to crush the human protection network once and for all. "How many ships do we have?" Campbell asked. 800, sir. "But most of our allies have never been in a real battle before." Campbell nodded. The Zephyrians had built 20 defense ships, but their crews were still learning. Crystal Singers had contributed sonic weapon platforms, but their weapons had never been tested in large-scale combat. Most of the peaceful species were brave, volunteers with more heart than experience. "Signal all ships," Campbell ordered. "This is Admiral Campbell to all Allied forces. Today we fight not for conquest or glory, but for the right of peaceful people to live without fear. Today we prove that good can triumph over evil when good people stand together." On the Zephyrian ship New Hope, Captain Kethvin received the message alongside his mostly civilian crew. 6 months ago, they had been artists and teachers. They were the first military crew in Zephyrian history, Captain his young communications. Officer Zetha asked nervously, "What if we're not strong enough?" Kethbon thought of his daughter, safe in a school that human engineers had rebuilt. "Zetha, we don't have to be stronger than them. We just have to be braver." Across the Alliance fleet, similar conversations were happening. Species who had never fought were preparing to risk everything to protect their new way of life. The battle began at dawn, system time. The Domination Alliance attacked in the traditional manner, with massive ships forming battle lines and exchanging heavy weapons fire. It was exactly what they had always done. It had always worked. But the human-led alliance did not fight traditionally. Commander Lisa Stone led the first wave, fighter squadrons weaving between the massive enemy ships like angry bees. Behind her flew pilots from a dozen different species, all using tactics the humans had taught them. "All fighters, this is Stone. Remember, we're not trying to destroy their big ships. We're trying to make them panic." The strategy worked perfectly. While the enemy focused on the massive fleet battle, human special forces teams were doing what they did best, causing chaos behind enemy lines. Captain Nicole Davis and her stealth ship teams boarded enemy vessels and began their psychological warfare campaign. But this time, they had help. Zephyrian children had recorded messages of hope and courage, which were broadcast through enemy ship communications along with the usual terrifying sounds. "Attention Korthok warriors," Zealara's voice echoed through enemy ships. "You came too. Our world to hurt children, but the humans taught us something important. When good people work together, bullies always lose." The combination of human ruthlessness and innocent determination was devastating to enemy morale. On the surface of a nearby moon, Major Kevin Price was coordinating the most ambitious operation in human military history, while the space battle raged above. Human and allied forces were attacking Domination Alliance bases across 17 different systems simultaneously. "Price to all ground teams," he broadcast. "Remember, our job isn't just to win this battle. It's to rescue every civilian being held prisoner by these species." Captain Tony Miller was leading one such rescue mission on a Scorpion Brotherhood prison world. His team had already freed over 3,000 prisoners from 12 different peaceful species. Many had been held for years, forgotten by the galaxy, but not forgotten by their families. Captain Corporal Barry Johnson called out, "You need to see this cell block." Miller followed him to a section of the prison that made his blood run cold. It was full of children. Hundreds of them, from dozens of species, all taken from their families to be raised as slaves. Sir Johnson whispered, "Some of these kids don't even remember their real names." Miller knelt beside a young crystal singer who was huddled in the corner of her cell. She was making no sound at all, which meant she was terrified beyond measure. "Hey there, little one," Miller said gently. "We're here to take you home." The child looked at him with glowing eyes full of fear. Then, slowly, she began to sing. It was a sad song, the kind that broke hearts across species barriers. "Johnson, get Dr. Green on the come. We're going to need a lot of help putting these families back together." Back in space, the battle was reaching its climax. The Domination Alliance had expected a quick victory, but the Alliance fleet was fighting. With desperate courage, Zephyrian ships that should have been destroyed kept fighting with hulls held together by emergency patches. Crystal Singer platforms continued firing their sonic weapons, even when their crews were wounded. War Leader Thekimer, commanding the Korthok forces from his massive battleship Eternal Conquest, could not understand what he was seeing. These peaceful species should have broken and run by now. Instead, they were fighting harder than any military force he had ever faced. War Leader, his tactical officer, reported, "Our victory is assured. The enemy fleet is outnumbered and outgunned. They refuse to retreat. They're fighting like their families depend on it." "Their families do depend on it," Thakmer said grimly. He was beginning to understand what the humans had done. They had not just created an alliance, they'd created a family. The turning point came when Admiral Campbell made a decision that shocked both sides. Instead of continuing the space battle, he ordered all human ships to begin evacuation procedures. "All human vessels," this is Campbell, "begin Operation Shepherd. Protect the evacuation ships at all costs." Across the battle zone, human ships moved to shield vessels full of rescued prisoners and civilians. They were no longer fighting to win a battle. They were fighting to save lives. The sight of human warships sacrificing themselves to protect refugee ships filled with alien children changed everything. Species who had been neutral in the conflict suddenly chose sides. The Centauri, Federation fleet, which had been watching from the edge of the system, suddenly jumped into the battle on humanity's side. The trade union dispatch vessels began jamming Domination Alliance communications. Even some ethereal collective members abandoned their pacifist principles and started providing tactical support. "This is Admiral Veltar of the Centauri Federation," came a broadcast on all frequencies. "Any ship that fires on refugee vessels carrying children will answer to us." The battle that was supposed to prove humanity's methods were wrong instead proved they were right. When people saw humans risking their lives to save alien children, they realized what the real choice was. Stand with those who protect the innocent, or stand with those who prey on the weak. Thakmer watched his alliance crumble as neutral species joined the fight against him. He had come to destroy the human protection network, but instead he had caused it to expand beyond anything he could have imagined. "Signal all Korthok ships," he ordered bitterly. "The war retreat. The war is lost." But Admiral Campbell was not finished. "Thakmer, this is Campbell. You wanted a final war. This is it. No more attacks on peaceful worlds. No more slavery. No more terror. Surrender now, or we end your empire forever." The Korthok war leader stared at his tactical display. Half his fleet was gone. The other half was surrounded by an alliance that now included most of the galaxy. For 800 years, the Korthok Empire had never surrendered. Today, they had no choice. Is War Leader Thekmar to all ships? We... surrender. The Korthok Empire accepts defeat. The silence that followed was broken by cheering across dozens of species and hundreds of ships. The final war was over, and the good guys had won. 3 months later, Zialara stood before the reformed Galactic Council wearing the uniform of the new Galactic Protection Service. She was now 10 years old and had become the youngest ambassador. In galactic history, as honored delegates, she addressed the Assembly. Today we vote on the Human Protection Doctrine. This law will make it the duty of all civilized species to protect peaceful worlds from aggression. The vote was unanimous. Admiral Campbell, now serving as the first director of Galactic Protection, received his orders through the new early warning system. Another distress call had come in, this time from the far edge of the Andromedon galaxy. "Sir," his communications officer reported, "it's the Gentle Garden Collective. They're being attacked by something called the Void Hunters." Campbell smiled and opened a channel to his fleet. Many of the ships now bore the flags of dozens of different species, all working together to protect the innocent. "All protection service vessels, this is Campbell. We have a new mission. Somewhere out there, children are crying for help. Ask. Force Guardian, prepare to jump. Let's go answer that call."